Great. I think we've got a good bunch who have rolled in, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Jenny Sumner with the National Renewable Energy Lab. I'm joined by Kevin Lin today with the Department of Energy, along with Kim Lopez. We're going to talk about our open opportunity right now for C2C in-depth partnerships. We can move to the next slide. Before we get started, I want to make sure everybody knows this webinar is being recorded and will be made available later. So no need to be scrambling to take notes. We will be recording everything and making it available. During the webinar at any time, feel free to submit your question. We'll be using the Q&A box in Zoom, so make sure to use that instead of the chat box. And we'll be having a lengthy time towards the end of the webinar to just run through those questions. If you're having any technical issues, check your audio settings under the audio tab, and you can use the chat to notify us of any persistent technical issues. But with that, we can move on to the next slide, and I wanted to give Kevin Lin, who's the Director of Grid Modernization at U.S. Department of Energy, some time to just talk about the history of C2C and what we're looking for in this opportunity. So Kevin, I will turn to you.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, we're very excited about the second announcement of our in-depth partnerships. The Secretary announced this, I think, maybe a year ago, January, at the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting. And since I think we've had several hundred folks apply and take advantage of all three offerings of our Clean Energy Communities program. Today, we're going to talk about our in-depth partnership solicitation, which is sort of the premier offering of this. And one of the things that we're really focusing on this time, as well as last time, is really focusing on strong partnerships with utilities and local governments. We're really looking forward to making sure that we have those strong partnerships in place. One of the things that really excites me, several of the things that excite me about this particular program, is that we've spent a year before the Secretary's announcement really trying to get the program offerings in place and really working with over 100 different community members through a number of different workshops, trying to really organize and think about what the Clean Energy Communities program should be offering and how. And I think it's really been a success so far. The other thing that really excites me, for those of you who are familiar about working with the Department of Energy, a lot of times we focus on individual technologies like vehicles or solar or buildings. In this particular program, we really focus at the big picture, how all those different pieces work together. And you can see clean power, mobility, buildings, and grid all come together. And we try to address them holistically as part of this in-depth partnership program. We not only think about those four sectors, but we also try to think about energy justice, local clean energy goals, jobs and economy, climate mitigation, et cetera. So we're really trying to think cross-cutting in this particular program. And I think, we've had a lot of great opportunities here, and the Secretary and the Deputy Secretary have been really excited about the program, and we're looking forward to telling you more about this program. And we hope you can apply and become part of it, or, apply to this program and potentially become a part of it. So with that, I want to turn this back over to Jenny, and I'll have her tell you more about what the solicitation is all about. So thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Before we do a deep dive into the in-depth partnership offering and start answering some questions, I did just want to remind folks that C2C does have 3 different opportunities. We'll be talking about in-depth partnerships today, but there are also peer learning cohorts that start every 6 months, and the next application period for that will be in the fall. Those opportunities are really focused on peer learning and exchange around a particular topic. There's no funding that goes out through those cohorts. It's a pretty light lift to apply. And then the other offer we have is Expert Match, and this is really focused on light touch, short-term assistance, easy web application, and that is open all the time. So you can apply at any time, and it's a nice way to start engaging with National Lab experts and get your short-term questions answered. We can move to the next slide. This is just a little bit more detail on Expert Match. If you want to get engaged at Expert Match and apply to in-depth partnerships, that's fine. Or if you're on this webinar and realize, you're not ready to apply to in-depth partnerships, but maybe you're ready to apply for Expert Match, just want to make sure folks are aware of that opportunity to apply. Like I said, it's designed to be very easy, light lift to get in. We can address anything that Kevin was speaking about earlier. So clean electricity, buildings, mobility, grid. We've also addressed things like financing or environmental justice. So very broad set of things that you can get technical support on. But with that, we'll keep going and start to really talk about the open opportunity that we have right now to apply for in-depth partnerships. We can move on to the next slide. So this is our second round of in-depth partnerships that we're launching. The proposals are due by June 14th and have been open since April 1st. So we're basically a month away from when the applications are due. Important piece for this is that we do need a coalition to apply, and that coalition has to include the local government, electric utility, and a community-based organization. Process-wise, everything will be selected via an RFP that has gone out, and Kim Lopez, who's on the line, will talk us through some of that process and be able to answer questions on that piece later. But basically, the in-depth partnerships are designed to be a streamlined application process. There's not a FOA out of DOE, it's an RFP out of NREL, so looks a little bit different if you've applied to a FOA before. Some of the benefits are really thinking about getting a dedicated national lab contact. So if you are awarded, you would be able to have basically one person assigned to you and your team that can coordinate all the work on the national lab side and be your point of contact. You are also eligible for up to $500,000 in subcontractor funding, and that can go to things like funding staff time for participation of team members. You can also use it to hire if you need some additional capacity on your side or a bunch of other things. We also provide facilitation and community engagement support. So in some of our current teams, the NREL and other partner lab staff are able to really facilitate meetings, provide expertise on how the team should engage the community and things like that. And then the biggest offer monetarily is the technical support from the national labs. So DOE funds national labs up to $3.5 million per project to provide technical support, which is probably a good transition into my next slide. I'll talk about some of the areas that we are currently supporting on this first round. If you want to move to the next slide. So we wanted to give folks just a sense of where C2C in-depth partnerships are running now in terms of geography and the types of entities that are working locally and the topics they're addressing. So one of the things you can see from this map is that we have communities across the country. They vary in size. So some very small communities like Sitka, Alaska, and Molokai, Hawaii. Some also very large communities like Chicago and Delaware Valley is basically the Philadelphia greater region. So lots of diversity in terms of where we're working, the size of communities, as well as the technologies that we are addressing. So I wanted to run through a couple of examples of projects. In Chicago, the team includes the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, Commonwealth Edison, and the Respiratory Health Association. And they are basically interested in support for reaching a net zero transportation emissions goal by 2050. Those improved tools that they'll have access to will basically help the region better understand challenges and opportunities from implementing low carbon transportation technologies, while also focusing on the cross-sectoral interactions with the grid. So they have Commonwealth Edison, the electric utility, as part of the project to think about that interaction with the grid. Another example is the city of Pittsburgh. So that project has the Department City of Planning, Duquesne Light, the electric utility, and the Green Building Alliance. They came in interested in basically deploying a smart electric energy district concept. The district's being composed of different smart energy infrastructure on the distribution side, like rooftop PV, appliances, buildings, storage, EV chargers, and figuring out how those districts could work together to meet grid and community needs. So I wanted to highlight those as just some examples. We do want to make sure that the work that the national labs are doing in support of these projects is really community informed. And so each of these projects in our current portfolio looks a little bit different. And we like to, engage with the teams and figure out what the most important parts are for support. With that, we can move on to the next slide. And I will do one slide on the RFP process and then turn over to Kim. So wanted to let folks know about a revision that has come out to the solicitation. So we modified some of the language in the solicitation to emphasize the role of the electric utility and the local government. And we want to make sure that teams coming in have a really strong pairing between their electric utility and local government and commitment from both of those organizations. So you'll see some language that reflects that change. You'll also see some language just clarifying the term community team. We're just going to talk about as a team. And we made that change to basically convey that when we're talking about the team, we're not just talking about the community-based organization. We're talking about the team, which includes the electric utility, the local government, and a community-based organization. So those changes are up on sam.gov, and happy to answer questions after Kim runs through some of her content as well. But with that, Kim, I will turn it over to you.
Fantastic, thank you. And just for everybody online, just to let you know that particular update is considered amendment to the solicitation. Next slide, please. So the community team structure. So the applying team is basically the core team submitting the application. And this is basically, as we've kind of talked about before, it is at a minimum a local government, an eligible electric utility, and a community-based organization. Investor-owned electric utilities are not considered an eligible utility, but the other forms are. And then basically, so that's the applying team and the core team. Now, one of the questions we do have in the Q&A is about a lead organization. So I just want to make sure, as we clarify, so of the local government, eligible utility, and community-based organization, one of them will be the lead organization who is going to engage in the subcontract with NREL. And they will be the one who then disperses funds to the rest of the team who are eligible. Now, as far as other additional relevant stakeholders that can, be part of this solicitation, part of your team under the solicitation, there's other departments of local government, local industry and trade organizations, relevant community-based technical experts or decision makers, housing authorities, developers, organizations in neighboring communities, regional organizations, local universities, and other community-based organizations. So those are your additional relevant stakeholders that can be part of the team but cannot receive project funding. Next slide. So other solicitation information, as we talked about before, this is a subcontract and not a grant. The subcontract ceiling amounts are set for $500K for the C2C in-depth technical partnerships. But the great thing is the technical assistance amounts, which are handled separate from the subcontract awards, and are anticipated to be up to $3.5 million. And that will be NREL as well as other national laboratories. The dates for receiving technical questions is stated in the RFP. I believe our last one is on the 17th of it. So our last round is going to be at the end of this week. So please pay attention to those dates in the solicitation. And we do have some other programmatic factors that are in the scoring for this particular solicitation. And those include geographic diversities, electric sectors, and they are all spelled out in the solicitation for you. Next slide. So the solicitation process is one, we have issued the request for proposals on April 1st. Interested parties hopefully have already downloaded the documents from SAM as we're getting close. You need to review those and then submit your questions. And like I said, our second round of questions are due pretty quick here. Basically, then from there, myself and the team, we answer the questions and then we post the amendments onto SAM. So be aware, you're going to be looking for not only the solicitation online, the updated solicitation is dated 5/13, but you're also going to be looking for the amendments that basically answer any questions that have been requested from all of the various parties. Proposals are due by June 14th by 5 p.m. Mountain Time. The proposals are then reviewed based on their technical merit and program factors. Once we do that down select, we make announcements to the selected offerers. And then NREL works to negotiate and finalize the agreement between NREL and the successful offerers. And then once the subcontract is actually awarded, which is signed by both parties and all terms and conditions and clauses are approved, then work can begin. Next slide, please. So SAM.gov, so that is where the solicitation and the amendments are listed. As you can see here, we have a nice little abbreviated link for you to get to those documents. As is stated, the amendment 1 was posted on May 8th. Amendment 2, actually, it was supposed to be posted on May 13th, but the SAM.gov site went down, so it went up first thing this morning. And amendment 3 will be posted to SAM no later than May 20th. And as you can see, we've got a nice little image of this is what it should look like on SAM when you are searching for that particular document. Next slide, please. So we've got a polling question, and we would like to know, do you plan to submit a proposal to the C2C in-depth partnerships? So you will get a polling I'm not sure if it's a questionnaire that pops up for you to complete. Next slide.
Looks like it did just pop up. Yeah, and I don't know
Okay.
if we want to give folks just a few seconds more to click the right button. But yeah,
Yeah.
we're basically hoping to just get your sense of where you're at. Yes, no, or maybe. Pretty easy choice.
Okay, so now we'll go into the frequently asked questions. So one of the things that is, it's very nebulous in this solicitation because we try not to we want it to have a very broad brush is I guess a good way to say it. And what's a community-based organization? So community-based organizations for this solicitation are not specifically defined. NREL views them as a community-based organization as an entity that can represent a geographic community's interests. So we ask that the team demonstrate their ability to broadly represent the community interests across clean energy topics. Another thing, what's an eligible utility? So teams are required to participate from their electric utility, but the only eligible utilities, co-ops, or municipal utilities can actually receive the funding for the participation. So you can have an investor-owned electric utility, but you would also have to have a co-op or a municipal. And the question's been asked, what community size is NREL seeking? And we're not looking for a specific community size. We want any community that feels that they have a good idea and have the team together to please put in for the solicitation. Next slide. Okay, now the really fun part, questions and answers. So we've got a question over here. What compliance and reporting requirements can we expect if awarded? So in the solicitation, we asked for you guys to provide a basically a proposal for your project that you want to do. There will be some standard reporting. I believe we request a community plan as part of one of the reporting items. Jenny, what other items would you anticipate as far as reporting?
Just sort of standard, quarterly reporting on progress updates or things like that. Basically on the NREL side, we would be working very closely with the awardees on a regular basis, but yeah, it's nice to have some sort of summaries of activities that have happened and things like that.
So one of the other questions we have is first to provide clarity on the funding of eligible entities for subcontract funding. So it's predominantly the 3 team members. And if you have a investor-owned utility, that particular group could not get funding. Is there anything you wanted to clarify on that, Jenny?
Nope, that's great.
Let's see, what other questions do we have? Can subcontracting funds be used to pay for materials such as clean energy tech, solar panels, EV charger, grid upgrades? That is an interesting question
I'll
because
take this one if you want, Kim, or
I was going to say some of that might be allowable and some might not. What would you like to add to it, Jenny?
Yeah, in the RFP, we did add some language basically clarifying that we don't intend to provide funding for commercially off the shelf available technology. But we have seen in our first round of projects, like one of the projects needed to purchase a controller for a microgrid, and that was sort of an essential piece in order to move forward with the technical assistance and the research questions, things like that. So there may be some flexibility there to purchase stuff that enables the research to occur, but we don't envision it for like, if you want to put solar panels on, the roof of local government buildings, there are lots of other programs and funding opportunities to do that. C2C is really more focused on what are the cross-cutting, cross-sectoral research questions that need to be answered.
Okay, thank you. So we have a question here. Is it appropriate to have 2 utilities in the core team? So a municipality, a community organization, and 2 utilities. And yes, that would be appropriate for this type of format.
Yeah, I did
go ahead.
want to speak a little bit to that.
Okay.
So most local governments, as folks on this line probably know, you have an investor-owned utility or a municipal or a co-op. So if you're in a place where there's only an investor-owned utility, that utility would need to be part of that core team. They just can't receive funding for their participation. So yeah, you could think about what does that role look like? Basically they're coming to the table with their own staff time and own contributions and not getting funding to support that.
We have another question here. At what stage should our project be in before applying for an in-depth technical partnership? Exploration or design? And that's all you, Jen.
Yeah, I can take that one. Or Jen King, feel free to weigh in, but C2C is pretty broad. So we are hoping to really address the challenges that your community is facing wherever they're at. For some communities or some teams that may be more in the planning phase. So you're thinking about, scenarios towards renewable energy pathways or zero emission pathways or things like that. Some teams might be ready to install specific technologies or pursue a microgrid or be a little bit further along, and we can answer those questions as well. So I think the most important thing probably is just to clarify, what are the goals of the team and what support do you need in order to make progress on those goals. You'll see some notes in the the evaluation matrix about also like, does your team have the authority to implement changes and things like that? So really less focused on the particular stage that you're at and more focused on, is there a clear need that you have for support from the national labs, and do you have a successful team on the ground to implement those recommendations or things that come out of that study?
Okay, we have another question here. DOE National Grid, does that count as an allowable utility to partner with?
We might want to follow up on that, but I believe National Grid is an investor-owned utility. So you could have them as your part of your core team, but they would not be eligible for funding. But Kim, maybe we should make a note and just confirm that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is planning for new nuclear, SMRs, microreactors, etc., considered clean energy?
I can take that one. So this program, yeah, Clean Energy to Communities is run out of the Department of Energy's EERE organization, Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. And we don't consider nuclear as part of that sort of research portfolio. But if there are questions around like, how nuclear may change or evolve as related to the existing grid or as related to EERE technologies, I think that would be in scope. So one example we didn't talk about in this webinar, but we did in the last webinar was some work that the team did in Fairbanks, Alaska, looking at two fossil units that were, planning to be retired, and how could the utility there replace those with wind and storage. So we can address things that are sort of touching on the broader grid and how it might be managed in the future.
Okay. Bear with me a moment.
Yeah,
Engagement things. So I have one here. Can you clarify? If we only have an investor-owned utility as a partner, can we move forward if the utility does not receive funding? Example, Duke Energy is Durham's only partner utility we can work with.
Yeah, so you would want engagement from Duke, right? You would want them to be part of your core team. They would not be eligible to receive funding. So the funding would go to the local government partner and the community-based organization partner in this case. But you would want to bring them in. You do not need to bring in some other utility type if there is not another utility type in your city or community.
Does the community-based organization need to be an actual grid measurement point in the C2C research program?
I'm not sure what that means. I don't know if that person would be able to type a clarification. Actual grid measurement point in the C2C research program. Yeah, if you want to type in a clarification, that would be great. But basically, yeah, we envision the community-based organization as being an organization located, co-located with the local government and the electric utility that can provide that sort of ground truthing of what the community wants for their energy transition or what some of the pain points have been and things like that. So yeah, feel free to chime in. I'm not sure I fully understand the grid measurement point piece of that question.
Okay. We also have, can an applicant include partners from multiple climate zones?
Let me think about that. So how we have structured C2C is that the team is a local team. So you would have your electric utility that serves the local government, and you have a community-based organization in that area to provide that ground truthing of the community perspective. So it's a little bit hard for me to envision, multiple climate zones within that group, but I suppose it could be possible. But yeah, we are looking for that sort of core team to represent one geographic place, if that helps.
And I think related to that was a question that said, can a community team include several towns?
Yeah, so we could include several towns if they are located next to each other or, within the same county or sort of local area. We would want them to be served by the same electric utility and kind of moving forward on a similar pathway for their energy transition. We wouldn't be thinking about, pairing a town in one state with a town in another state or things like that.
The teaming agreement has to have representation from utility plus local governments plus CBOs. Or can the team have one of the organizations with a local university participating? And I would believe that we can say that, yes, the university could participate as the community-based organization, but could not receive funding. Is that correct, Jane?
I think that's correct. Yeah.
We had another one that said, did the community-based organization could not be the lead entity? That is not correct. A CBO can be the lead entity, as long as they are not a university or another, investor-owned utility. Any other clarifications for that one, Jenny?
Nope.
Can C2C funding be to secondary stakeholders flow through the primary partner for expense reimbursement?
I don't know about that one. Do you know that, Kim?
I was going to say, I believe that would be allowable. If it's strictly a expense reimbursement and not necessarily paying for labor or other items. If it's expenses for them to join meetings and things like that, I don't think that would be an issue. Can an industry partners or small business headquartered in the applying community apply on behalf of the other three organizations? Are there any funds allowed to go to the industry partner?
I might defer to you on this, Kim, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think the lead applicant needs to be one of the three organizations. So yeah, Kim, maybe I'll ask you if you have thoughts on
Yes,
the role of industry partners. Yeah.
The role of an industry partner is meant to be a stakeholder position. And so that person could do the application for the team, but one of the three organizations would have to actually be the subcontractor. And the industry partner would not be able to get reimbursement through the subcontract funding. If the three organizations wanted to pay the industry partner for their time and energy, that would have to be separate from the funding that we provide to them. Another question, can a small business participate as a lead as long as they have formed a team that includes a utility, community-based, and local government? I believe that, that falls into the same one we just answered. What is available in advance of commercial readiness on either or both the communities or technologies? I'm not sure I understand that question.
Not sure I understand either. Yeah, basically, I mean, generally, in terms of the technical assistance that can be provided to the team, if that's what the question is about, we can look at, technologies that are commercially available and think about, expected deployment of those technologies or scenarios of growth for those technologies within the community. We can also look at technologies that are not commercially available yet, and we can also look at combinations of commercially readily available technologies and address sort of the intersection of those technologies and any challenges that might come up when they are being deployed. So yeah, if there's clarification, feel free to chime in again, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we can do in terms of technologies on the ERE side of things.
Will shovel readiness be a criteria that increases the strength of the application?
So we don't have a criteria sort of directly related to shovel readiness. If you're looking through the criterion, there is a question on basically the authority of the representatives on the team to, I'll just look it up so I get it right, to inform action. So basically, like, can your team buy something? Do they have experience procuring assets or things like that? But we don't, yeah, have a specific criteria on like shovel readiness of a project.
Got a question here. Can a team apply with a project concept also in the process of applying for federal grant opportunities? That one is going to be a little tough because basically you cannot use government funds to pay for the same expenses twice. So it would really depend on the size of the project and how much government funding was going towards the overall project. So I would probably say that we would not want to do those type of projects. Anything from you, Jenny, on
Yeah, I
that
think
one?
if there's if there's a way to just distinguish the two proposals, that would be helpful. In our first round, we did have two communities that were also awarded from the Energy Transition Initiative project. So they had had another federal project that was working in their jurisdiction and were able to sort of clarify, here's what this federal dollar is going to, and here's what this other federal dollar is going to make sure we're not double dipping and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do the communities have to receive electricity from the utility to be on the team?
Oh, maybe this is going back to our, the last comment about where things are located. So yeah, you would want the electric utility on the team to be the one that is serving the community. So yeah, basically having that similar match. So hopefully that clears things up. But yeah, making sure that the community-based organization and the local government are within that electric utilities service territory that's on the team.
Please explain that utility is the only entity to receive funding. My apologies. There was a little more to that particular question, but my screen moved. But no, the utility is not the only one that can be the basically team lead. It could also be the community-based organization or the local government.
There's another question on just timing of award selection decision and our funds reimbursement based. Kim, can you answer that one?
I believe we have at the end of the slide here a little bit about the timing of the awards and stuff. But as far as expenses, typical expenses that you could use is salaries or fully burdened labor rates, meeting expenses, if there's travel that's going to be required, expenses that are going to need to be paid to implement the project ideas. The only thing that we're really trying to make sure that everyone understands is that it cannot be used to purchase, commercially available technology items such as like solar panels and things of that nature. The bigger ticket items, I guess you want to say. What about communities where the technology could be for industrial use behind the meter?
Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah, we have a bunch of projects in this first round that are looking for that are looking at behind the meter technologies generally. I know there have been also a number of other DOE funded projects in the industrial space and looking at sort of the transition of different industrial facilities. Jen King, I don't know if there's anything else you want to chime in on that topic based on your experience working in the industrial space.
No, I think you nailed it. Yes, we are interested in those types of things. And I think the challenge there is it will be across a lot of different technologies, and that's what makes it a unique and cool project.
And I think we just got a couple of minutes left. So I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and table the rest of the questions. Just know that any questions that are actually in the questions and answer portion of this, not in the webinar chat, will be answered and listed in Amendment 3 that will be posted to the SAMgov website by Monday. So please be sure if you did put questions in the chat that you did not get answered to your satisfaction, that you please put them in the question and answer portion. Next slide. So important dates and contact information. So just please note that again, the submissions are due by June 14th, 5 p.m. Mountain Time. If for some reason you are unable to get it in by that time, we do accept late submissions, but you do basically get downgraded because of that. Any technical questions should be sent to the C2C at NREL.gov email address, but anything pertaining to the solicitation or RFP questions should be sent to me directly. And I did also put that email in the questions and answers if you wanted to grab it from there. And to learn more, please go to the NREL.gov C2C site. Next slide.
And I
Yes,
think that's
final
all we've
slide.
got. Yeah.
Oh, then I apologize. But okay, I will take a couple seconds here just before we finish the meeting to say subcontract funding and timing. So the reviews and solicitation of the solicitation run through and final decisions are meant to be made in early August, if I remember correctly. Jenny, keep me honest on this.
I think late August to September is probably more realistic. Yeah.
Okay, so late August to September, and we would anticipate finalizing that subcontract within a month. We have had issues before where various organizations have to go out, especially the local governments, and have to go through a board review process. So those types of things can delay. But like if your community-based organization is your lead and they don't have to go through that particular type of process ahead of accepting subcontract funding, that's easily to do and allowed. And then I'm trying to remember, there was one other thing that somebody had asked that was in line with that. Well, my apologies for forgetting about it, but we'll get it taken care of in the amendment for you.
Great. Thanks, Kim. And I know, yeah, we have some very specific questions still in the Q&A. We will get those responses out, but we don't want to bog everybody down with answering very specific questions on the call right now. But like Kim said, please reach out with technical questions or solicitation and RFP questions. We really want to make this process as easy as possible for people to apply. Make sure you're getting a good sense of what the requirements are and things like that. So appreciate everybody joining today and spending some time with us. And yeah, stay tuned for more responses to your questions and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.